What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. This is Hawk Talk on Melrose. Feels kind of different because we're only doing one episode this week, but it's all good. Got Tyler here. We're going to go over a little bit of the Illinois game. It's been a few days. We've probably all moved on, but we have a little bit of our own thoughts on that. And then we'll get into the Nebraska game. And obviously, huge news. We won the West. We're making it back to Indy, Big Ten West champions. Feels good. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So what's going on, Tyler? How's your week going? We are getting close to Thanksgiving, getting close to Black Friday. So it's a good week so far.
Yeah. And it's weird. It feels like it should be a Wednesday and it's only Tuesday because we're recording a little earlier with the holiday approaching, like you mentioned. So but yeah, dude, huge win last week. And obviously, we won the West. Doesn't mean that I still don't want to kick the shit out of Nebraska. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And make sure that they don't go bowling. So that would be a great end of the year treat for us Iowa fans. But yeah, excited to talk about it all for sure.
So I'm gonna actually share my screen right now and go just with the team stats for the Illinois game, just briefly. Just some of the things that I kind of saw that I kind of want to point out. First, it really felt like watching that game. It was like, man, our defense is struggling. Like we're giving up yards. Obviously, Isaiah Williams, 105 yards. Their running back had 64 yards. But when you look at like after it was all said and done, they didn't really do that good of a job. 13 points total, 5 for 15 third down efficiency, 18 first downs, 280 total yards. Like that's not very good. So it's just funny how with our defense, even when it's not like what we think at the time is very good, it's still really good. And that's just how we, the expectations and just with this defense, it's like just goes to show how good it is. Because even when it's like doesn't feel like it is, it still really is. And in holding that team to 280 yards, only 13 points, I don't care how good or bad the team is. That's a damn good job. So that's like the first thing I really thought of when I was looking at these team stats. I would have thought it would have been more just judging from watching that game. So, yeah,
I'll be honest with you. It's hard to believe that technically by 1 yard, we actually outgained them. It didn't feel like it during the game. There's stretches. This is Iowa football. It's still Iowa's offense where obviously we're not doing a whole lot. And it is crazy because, we were texting back and forth and like, it just seemed like for a stretch there, Isaiah Williams was kind of going off a little bit, getting his receptions, making some big time catches and getting some crucial yards in the process. But yeah, when you look at it, they really didn't do a whole lot. And obviously the stats are here to show that.
Their quarterback just a week prior had over 500 yards against Indiana. This last week finished 22 for 47 for only 215 total yards. I mean, he made some good throws here or there on Saturday, but for the most part, we held him in check. I don't remember. Did Altmaier play at all? Or was it this guy the entire game?
It was Paddock.
Okay, it was him. I didn't know if Altmaier came in at the beginning because remember, I couldn't watch the freaking beginning for a little bit there. Yeah. So I didn't know if he came in for like 1 or 2 series and he sucked and they brought in
that was
guy.
The question we were wanting to know, right? Like who's going to start? Like, do you go with the guy that just threw for 500 yards? And obviously that's the decision that they made.
Yep. Offensively for Iowa, it started off like we were carrying the momentum from the Rutgers game. And, into this game, the first quarter and a half, it was really looking good. And then it was like punt, 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 punt. And then we finally obviously scored at the end to go ahead and win the West. But Deacon, for the most part, I mean, he finished 19 for 29. He had no turnovers, which is always a good thing. 167 yards. I mean, I'm going to be completely honest. I mean, when you really think of Deacon these last few games, ever since the bye week, he's really been a lot better. I mean, it's not great by any stretch of the imagination. It's never going to be great with him, but I think he was 35% completion percentage, like going into like the Northwestern game.
Yeah.
And these last 3 games, he's at like 62 or 63%, which is where we want to be. Like that's a realistic goal. Remember, that's what we were talking with, like hopefully Cade could be at. Yep. So I'll take that. And if he's not turning the ball over in these last few games, he's been a lot better at that. Like I'm all for it. I still don't think he's very good, but I think at this point with this offense, it's so limited that you're not going to get really good. So
Right.
can you just be decent? And I really like that. Another thing on this screen that you can see here on the left-hand side, man, I love seeing Caleb Brown get the ball. 7 receptions, 71 yards. It's taken 10 games, but, the Northwestern game was kind of the turning point. He had that big catch at the end. And ever since then, and I hate saying this, but I think Deontay Vines getting hurt was maybe a good thing. Or I shouldn't say that, not a good thing, but like for Caleb, it's probably the best thing that could happen because it got him on the field more. He's starting now, and you're starting to see what he is capable of. If Deontay Vines never got hurt, like Caleb probably still wouldn't be starting. It just seems like they were like Vines, think about that. Like Vines would probably still be starting. Doesn't mean Caleb would never play, but like Vines would have probably had more snaps.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. I think that's why he's been so inconsistent is because he just isn't on the field enough.
Yeah,
for us to get him the ball.
And we're utilizing him in different areas. For a while there, it felt like it was just jet sweeps, and it felt like it was like the receiver screens. But this last game, he actually, like he had that one really nice ball at the beginning of the game where we did that play action pass, which once again, I wish we would go back to that more often. It seems like we only did that one time and then we just never did it again. And you saw what he did. He got open and he got another extra 10 yards out of it, just turning it upfield, his speed, his agility. So I don't know. I really like that. And I just think moving forward, just keep getting him the ball. I keep saying it. My number one priority is making sure he stays on this team going into next year. How do you do that? Get him the ball these last few games. Make him know that, hey, you are a big piece of our offense. Those first 10 games, man, dude, like there was times where I was like, there's no way this guy stays. I mean, remember that one game where he didn't even play?
Yeah.
And I was like, he's done. He's there's no way. And then we're slowly but surely getting him more involved in these last few games. He's like the centerpiece. And that's huge moving forward.
Yeah, the big thing for me, I think, in the difference in the game is obviously I know we didn't create a turnover, but we also we didn't have one ourselves. And I think that's been the issue with Deacon so far is I swear he's turned it over in every game. So up to this point. And I really think that was a difference in this close game, as well as obviously crazy to think about the safety from the defense as well in the first quarter to open that up. But yeah, that was huge to see. And like you said, getting Caleb Brown, what did we talk about? Just trying to build off of that Rutgers game. Go ahead.
Well, wouldn't that count as a turnover for Illinois, getting a safety? Or no? Because they had
weird because they like don't count that. I don't really know. It's weird. Technically, it's like I don't know. It's like,
they had the ball.
It's like a turnover on downs. It doesn't count as an actual like
turnover. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I can say, even though it's not considered one, I consider it because if you think about it, we get, they had the ball.
For sure.
We got 2 points out of it.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen very often. So,
Yep. No, that's a good point. And yeah, like I said, I think like you mentioned getting Caleb Brown the ball. What did we talk about? Continuing to build off of what we did against Rutgers. I didn't want to just see this one time and then all of a sudden we just get away from it. We didn't. 7 catches, like you said, quite 70 yards, whatever it was. Obviously that's a key to our offense right now for sure. He's one of the best players. And then once again, Caleb Johnson coming up clutch late. Line did a great job of blocking and he hit the hole and he was gone. And that was obviously the game right there. So
it was cool to see because obviously these last few weeks, it's been kind of bad for, Caleb. He hasn't really got the ball very much. I mean, that one game he didn't play at all. What game was that? I think that was the Northwestern game.
Up until that point, Collin, I don't know if you noticed in the Illinois game, he'd get the ball. He'd run up the middle, get stuff for a yard and come right out. I'm like, what are we doing with him? Come on.
Exactly.
And
so
I'm very glad he was able to capitalize on that one play because up until that point, it was even tough to watch during this game.
And no one talks about it, but that 3rd and 8 where he gets the first down, where we essentially just ice the game at that point.
Correct.
Because I was so afraid that it's like, okay, we're just going to give the ball back to them with like a minute and a half left. And
we were just running, right? We were we weren't doing what exactly. And it worked this time. So
exactly.
Obviously we're lucky there, but
and what I was afraid of, like, unlike the Iowa State game, for example, where we end up giving them the ball back, but the problem for them was they had to go all the way down the field to score a touchdown. This was just a field goal and they'd win it. And so you're talking instead of like 80 yards, you only need like 40, 50 yards.
Correct.
So that's why I was like really afraid about that.
Big
So
difference.
yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, we get the job done. It felt good because obviously last year it was almost like deja vu going in that game where it's like, okay, Cooper Jean gets hurt, your best player. Last year, Cooper Jean gets hurt, Sam Laporta was hurt, your best players. And all you have to do is win that game and you're in. And it really was feeling like this last game was going to be like that. And it really felt like that third and fourth quarter. It really felt like, wow, we looks like we're going to have to win in Lincoln at Nebraska.
Well, I was texting you and we were talking about it. Going into that, like you said, even the third quarter, I was like the fourth, but I text you, I'm like, I don't see how we win this game. Like we're trailing, we'd have to come from behind. Like haven't really been doing anything up until that, obviously until that whole third quarter, nothing. I did not feel good about it. I'm like, of course, here we go. Have to win in Lincoln.
Yep.
And yeah, credit to them. They got the job done.
Yeah, the pace was really on Illinois' side. It really felt like that.
Yeah.
And but I also thought in going back to the defense for a little bit, obviously without Cooper out there, there were times where it really showed. But I thought for the most part, Harris and Deshaun Lee did a good job. And I think Harris, that was his best game as a Hawkeye, which is really good to see because we need that now. I mean, you're CB1. We need you to step up and be that main guy. We need you to be like where quarterbacks are afraid to throw your way. Because then it essentially blocks that half the field. Like we need that. So if you can continue to be like that, that's huge.
Yeah, and nothing cheap, nothing deep. Like there was no explosive plays really down the field, which was what I was afraid of. And yeah, I mean Isaiah, if you're going to tell me Isaiah Williams is the only guy that really kind of had a good game, then yeah, you give yourself a good shot, because if you can just let him earn everything that he gets, which he did, then everything else will take care of itself. And it did.
Make everybody else beat you essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, going into this Nebraska game, it's always obviously a huge game every year on Black Friday. For some people, they might be like, well, it doesn't really mean much because, it doesn't matter. If we lose, we're still in, which I get that. But for me, I think it's like three things. It's like, okay, number one, and I think this is the biggest reason. It's like, I want to finish 10-2. I mean, a lot of programs rarely get to 10 wins. Speaking like the team out west, like Iowa State, never been. No, I had to add that jab in there, but but going to 10-2, it's a big thing. Right now we're recording this at 5:14. So when you guys listen to this, the college football playoffs will be out later tonight. Right. I would assume right now we're at 16. I would assume we're probably going to say around 16. But if we win at Nebraska, you're 10-2. You might be like top 13-ish. You lose, you're 9-3. Like I don't know, the optics just don't look as good heading into the Big Ten championship.
Double-digit wins.
You're probably not ranked maybe you will, but you'll be like really like 23, 24, 25. So I just think it just looks so much better, especially when you go to Indy. Like if you're 10-2, you're ranked top 13 or top 14, whatever. Number two, you get a spoiled Nebraska season. How big is it for a year one program to make it to a bowl game? It's huge because you get those extra practices. It's a big thing. And so if you get to spoil that and just essentially be like, you're done, your season's over with, that's big. I mean, they essentially spoiled our season last year by us not going to the Big Ten championship game. And then, just number three, it's a rival, right? And it's a trophy game. Last year was very bitter, left a kind of a sour taste, kind of like the Iowa State game, right? It's just like, should not have lost that game. So I just gave you three reasons why it's still a huge game, despite the fact that, yes, it really doesn't matter if we win or lose, but I really want to win this game.
Yeah, and the other part is like, I mean, it's just more reps and more experience for guys like Deshaun Lee, right? Even Deacon Hill, like these guys that need these. I mean, not that they wouldn't take it seriously anyway, but like just another game, more reps under their belt, more, another game to improve before, we get to that Big Ten championship. I mean, like this offense is still struggling. Like we need everything. We need all the help we can get. And like you said, I mean, it's Nebraska. It's not like this game I'm going to be just as excited for, as any other game. Like it's not just, we made it to the Big Ten championship. Well, we lost, we lose. Like if we lose, I'm still going to it's still going to suck, just as much Well, obviously not just as much if we didn't make it, but like, you know what I mean?
Well, and I think this too. It's like, even though, yes, more than likely we're going to get blown out in the Big Ten championship game. I hate saying that as a fan, not being negative. I think it's just a realistic possibility. Yeah. But despite that, though, I want to be riding momentum going to that game. And if you win on Friday, you're 4-0 in November. You're on a 4-game win streak. Like, things are looking really good. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Versus like losing on Friday, you feel kind of down. Like maybe it will help a little bit getting back up. But like, no, I'd rather carry that momentum regardless of, we're probably going to lose. We're probably going to lose by double digits. But still, I want to carry that momentum into that game. So, and going back to like 2021 is a little bit different because like we didn't know if we were going to make it or not. Remember, we had to rely the next day for Minnesota to beat Wisconsin.
It was not control your own destiny for Iowa.
And so this is a little bit different where it's like, okay, obviously we made it regardless, but like, God, if you can win on Friday, like you're really feeling like, okay, let's like, you already know you're going, but it's really going to help if you can win that game. So, but yeah, we can get into the game a little bit, kind of just discuss kind of what we think. I think it's going to be another slugfest, a snooze fest, whatever you want to call it. Low scoring. I saw the over under now is at 26.5, which is just crazy.
It keeps getting lower. I don't know how, but it does. It really does.
But you can see why. Obviously, Iowa's offense is not good. Iowa's defense is really good. And if you look at Nebraska, very similar type of team. Offense sucks, defense is good.
Yep.
So, before for me, you're talking before about Illinois and Iowa with the turnovers. This game, it really comes down to that. I know you could say that about every game, but man, like if Iowa doesn't turn the ball over, and Nebraska's going to, it's just that's Nebraska. Like they're going to turn over the ball. That's where I feel somewhat confident that we can get the job done because of that reason. Now, if I didn't think that was going to happen, like I think Nebraska, probably might win this game, but I think with the turnovers is what's going to help us.
Yes, turnovers, and because I thought I saw something on Twitter where it was like the last, I don't know how many years, but it's been super close against Nebraska, right?
It has.
I think it's also going to come down to special teams. It usually does in a game like this.
Yeah.
Drew Stevens, got to make field goals, brother. Yep. Been a bit of an issue as of late. But I just feel like it's going to come down to something like that again. And like gotta capitalize on that. Because I don't know the exact scores or anything like that. I just know it's been like super close the last like 5-6 years, whatever it's been.
Yeah, it has last year, like, and I don't know if you remember this last year, but
we lost by
we only lost by 7, but it was like 24-0 or something like that at one point.
Yeah.
Now we didn't.
What
were you gonna say?
I was gonna say we didn't even deserve to be in that game, but we actually came back and
we did. We really missed Cooper DeJean that game because I don't know if you remember. Like obviously Trey Palmer went off
early,
but then I don't know if you remember this, but Arlen Bruce had that muff punt beginning the third quarter. Like that doesn't happen if Cooper was out there, right? So like we desperately missed what's his name that game. But anyways, I will say this, like I'm happy that because it sounds like Chubba Purdy's going to be starting on Friday, excuse me. I mean, I think that Heinrich or whatever his name is, I think he's hurt. I don't think he's going to play. And then I think just from what I've heard, from what, obviously living in Lincoln, I've been talking to Nebraska fans. Mm-hmm. I think they're done with Jeff Sims. Like the program's just done with him. Like maybe he'll go out there a few times, but like the dude's just a turnover machine.
Yeah.
From what I've heard is like, even in practice, he's just horrible. He can't read defenses. So it's going to be more than likely Chubba Purdy. And if you go back, and I know I didn't watch much of the Nebraska-Wisconsin game, but they started off 14-0 in the first quarter, and they actually looked pretty good. Their offense looked pretty good. Chubba Purdy looked kind of good. I really think it's because Wisconsin had no tape on Chubba. They didn't really know his tendencies. And then after the first quarter, it was like Wisconsin made adjustments, and Nebraska only scored 3 more points in the last 3 quarters. That's why I was telling one of the guys here that like I love that he played the entire game because it gives us the film for that entire game versus like let's say like this, like going into this game, this was like Chubba's first game, because it always seems like that. It always seems like first time quarterbacks, that first game, right? Like they always look kind of good because it's like, well, yeah, because the other team doesn't have any film on you. They don't really know like what you're good at, what you're bad at, your tendencies, things like that.
It kind of reminds me of even like when we played Wisconsin. Remember, like before Cameron Mordecai got hurt, he was so bad because we had all that tape on him. And then that backup comes in and we're like, okay, cool. He's like getting like some completions, actually moving the ball a little bit. Obviously, didn't do great, but like still, like that's the same thing. You make a good point there.
Yeah, because like I know Chuba had that one rushing touchdown where I think he had a rushing touchdown.
Yeah, he had like over 100 yards rushing, I think.
Yeah. So I'm really happy that he
can run.
Yeah, he can. Yep, he can run. So I don't know. It's gonna be a very interesting game to say the least. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, we can get in the scores right now, but like, so easy to say this because I feel like every game it's been like this. But like, I could legitimately see it being like a 13-10 game. You know, comes down to, you know, whoever gets to 13 points, whoever gets that extra 3 points is essentially going to come down to like a turnover, special team, something like that. So
I'll say 17-13 just to be a little different. But it's gonna be low scoring, gonna be probably hit the under. And you know,
well, if that's the case, it won't. If that's the final score, it won't. But because the over under is 26.
So low. Oh my gosh. I don't think we're getting to 17, but you never know with Nebraska, right? Like you said, they're a turnover waiting to happen. Maybe we'll actually scoop and score or get a pick six this game. I'll just say 17-13. Maybe our offense will get to 17.
I mean, I think if we can get to 17, we win.
Yeah.
I just don't see, and it might be a little bit different now because Nebraska looked a little bit better offensively on Saturday. Yeah. But like a week ago, like after we beat Rutgers and then just watching Nebraska, it's like, I don't know how this Nebraska team is going to be able to score on our defense.
It's going to be like, did our corners get beat? Did we give up an explosive play? I think if you don't do that again, you make them earn everything, keep everything in front of you.
Yep.
That's the way to obviously success with this defense for sure.
So I'm looking at his stats for last game, and yep, you're right. He finished with over 100. He finished with 105 rushing yards.
Yeah.
And then a Maryland game, which he barely played, he actually 3 carries for 33 yards, which is average 11. So, dude, yeah, he definitely runs.
He can run.
So we got to be able to maintain that or contain that, I should say.
Stop that, and I would say force him to beat you with his arm for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, with Nebraska, similar to Iowa, they've had a lot of injuries. I think both of their running backs, or maybe even their top 3 running backs, are out for the year. Yeah. They lost one of their really good wide receivers. Like they've really been, when it comes to injuries, just like Iowa, have been very unlucky. So, but yeah, I think if we could get to 17 points, man, like I would say that should be a win. I don't know how Nebraska scores more than that, right? So like, if we can get to 17, I think it should be a win for us. I mean, you go back to the Illinois game, like we get that nice drive where we score with Addison Ostrenga. Like if we can do that a couple times a game, it's for sure a win. Like if we like that Illinois game, if we could do that just 2 times, along with those occasional drives where we end up with a field goal, like that's an easy win. So like if we could do that on Friday, get to 17 points, like that should be a win for us.
Yep. I was going to ask you too. I don't know if you had it jotted down or not. What'd you think of Matt Rule's comments about Brian and Kirk kind of buttering us up a little bit?
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like it's like, does he actually mean that, or is he just saying that just to say it? I have no idea.
I think he has a decent amount of respect for us. Yeah. I mean, he's a guy that, I mean, I know it's not showing right now in the first year in Nebraska, but he builds programs, does it the right way. I think he has a lot of respect for like what Kirk and Brian do with, like he said, player development and stuff like that. I think he means it, but like I said, it's just obviously funny timing when he gets asked about it and he kind of butters us up a little bit.
The one thing with him, I will say, is he's really good at like talking to the media.
Yeah,
that's something Scott Frost was horrible at. He just sounded like an ass every time.
He actually like genuinely enjoys talking to the media. and like actually answering their questions. Like, yeah, Scott Frost,
he was horrible at that
for good reason. They fucking questioned everything he did because he was such a bad coach.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
No, Matt Rule, like it's hard not to hate the guy. Like he's a pretty good coach. Like when Scott Frost was there, I hated Nebraska so much because of Scott Frost. With Matt Rule, like I still hate Nebraska, but it's not as much as I did with Frost there. I just felt like Frost was such a prick, like arrogant prick. Yep. So, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see like how up they are because obviously for them it's kind of like a playoff game for them. They need a win to essentially go to a bowl game.
Yep, and that's why I'm a little so glad that we took care of business on Saturday, and it because like I mentioned, they have a lot to play for.
Yes,
they have a lot to play for to continue their season.
And I'm sure there's probably some players on the roster, just like every team has probably a few players that are probably just like, hopefully like they want to be done with the season. Like I'm sure there's probably some that are like that are like, I'd rather not go through another month of football. You know, it's going to be a shitty bowl game anyways. I'm sure there's some players that think that, but for the most part, I'm sure majority are like, I want to continue with this. I want to, even though it's going to be a bad bowl game, it's probably going to be the Music City Bowl or the Pinstripe Bowl. But for Nebraska, when's the last time they made it to a bowl game? I mean, what was it? I mean, it was not during Scott Frost's era. Was it 20? I would have to look, dude. I'm going to look right here while we're talking, but it's been a while that they've been to a bowl game. No,
and like you mentioned, it's a huge, it's a big deal for a first year head coach to make it to a bowl game, and obviously with like you said, the lack of success that they've had under Scott Frost. I mean, that's a big deal going into the offseason.
I was gonna say one more thing and I completely forgot. Oh, I was gonna say this is random, but the weather on Friday doesn't look that ideal. It looks like it's supposed to be pretty cold. I mean, at least it's not going to rain or anything, but it looks like it's gonna be pretty cold. So I wonder if that will take any effect at all for the game or not.
It could.
So the last bowl game that they went to was 2016.
Damn.
And that was a Music City Bowl.
Wow.
They lost 38-24. So that was the last time. I mean, 2016. I mean, we were
like 8 years now. That's crazy.
We were sophomores in college. Was the last time they made it to a bowl game. So think about how big, especially for a first year head coach, just to get back to a bowl game.
Yeah.
To just get there, even if it's a shitty bowl game, it's so big for a program like that. So
and I think like I said, it's a lot of extra motivation from Iowa too, right? To prevent that.
It's kind of like, honestly, and I know I was giving Iowa State shit before. Here's the thing I will give them props for is for how young of a team they are.
Yeah.
They're 6-5. They're probably going to finish 6-6. I don't think they're going to beat Kansas State this weekend on the road, but like they're still going to make it to a bowl game. And after what was like last year of, just a horrible year, 4-8, and then coming back this year, they had all those, guys with the gambling. You're inserting a bunch of really young players. For them to go 6-6 or 7-5, make it to a bowl game, like that's huge for that program. Even though Campbell has established himself there, he's been there now for 5 or 6 years. Still pretty big. It's still really big, actually, if they make it to a bowl game.
I mean, again, like credit to them. Like just a few games ago, they were in contention to like get to a Big 12 championship game.
Yep. Well, fuck, they would have beat Texas.
Yeah,
they would have been right in it.
Yeah.
So,
it's crazy how a couple games make that big of a difference. But
I'm going to end this podcast off. I know I have not talked to you about this, so this is all going to be very raw, and I just want to hear your thoughts. But talking with Iowa's offensive coordinator and who it's going to be, and who knows. I mean, it all depends on obviously if Kirk stays, which I think he will. Everyone here in Nebraska, talking Nebraska, they all think he's done. It's like, I just don't think so. I think he's going to give it a few more years.
I do too.
But I really think that with Kirk, like his identity on offense, his scheme is never going to really change, right? Like he's going to want to have the same, like we can hope for, we can wish for like, bring in like a young buck and completely change the identity, the scheme. But I think with Kirk, you're going to get what you're going to get.
Yeah.
So with that being said, and I was talking to Colby and Austin about this, and I texted them just before about what I'm about ready to say, and they're like, "Wow, we were literally just talking about this like a couple days ago, and we were like saying the same thing." I actually wouldn't mind, and I know you're gonna be like, ugh. I actually wouldn't mind Paul Chris as offensive coordinator, and I'm gonna give you the reasons why. So, obviously as head coach at Wisconsin, and you could look at his record at Wisconsin, and I'm actually gonna pull it up here.
I don't hate Paul Chris, by the way.
So, oh wait, that was sorry about that. Let's see here. Right here. So his record at Wisconsin was not bad. I mean, he had the last few years, it wasn't great, but it still wasn't bad. 2-time Big Ten Coach of the Year, 6-1 in bowl games, and including 2 New Year's Six bowls, as you can see there, Cotton Bowl, Orange Bowl. But the big thing was as he was offensive coordinator at Wisconsin from 2005 to 2011. In those 7 years, he averaged 34.1 points per game, 416 yards per game, which was best in the Big Ten in that span. And in 2010 and 2011, they won back-to-back Big Ten titles, and they averaged 41.5 points per game and 44.1 points per game. And then just talking with the running backs that they have had under him, James White, Monte Ball, Melvin Gordon, Jonathan Taylor, Corey Clement, John Clay, Braylon Allen. So the more I think about it, I know it's like a kind of a boring hire, but like I actually don't think it would be that bad of a hire because I think it's we know what the scheme. Yes.
And being a realistic situation.
For having a similar scheme, Paul Chris was pretty damn good at what he was doing for having a pretty similar scheme to what Kirk Ferentz likes to run.
Yeah.
How many times have we said it, like how many years, these last like decade, where it's like, why can't we be like Wisconsin? We're always like a step under them. And I don't know, like the more I think about it, I know for a while there, I was very like I do not want this guy. I don't know. I'm starting to kind of change my direction a little bit. Unless, like, obviously Kirk was way willing to change, but we know he's not. I would take him, honestly, in a heartbeat.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And, when you think of Paul Chris in Wisconsin, you think of them just running all over everyone, right?
Yep.
You think of, like you just mentioned, all those running backs, all the great offensive lines that they've had. Like,
exactly.
If you're telling me that we get a guy like that and all of a sudden the offensive line gets bigger and better, and all of a sudden these running backs are able to run the ball way more effectively, like, hell yeah, dude. I'm all for it because I agree with you. If Kirk stays, which I want him to, and he's still willing to kind of, still wanting to do kind of his scheme, his offense, not really changing a whole lot in terms of like the philosophy, then a guy like Paul Chris comes in, does a lot of what Kirk wants to do, and then can add his own wrinkles. Too in the run game and pass game. And yeah, dude, I think that wouldn't be a bad hire either.
I don't know if you realize this, but like when he was at Wisconsin, they did a lot of like motions.
They did
with guys.
They did the jet motion.
Yes,
with like multiple running backs. I'm pretty sure.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, go watch like one of the big time bowl games they were in. They ran like that jet sweep with, and then they also had like another good running back in the backfield. Yeah. Yep, they did that. Which you do that now. So I mean,
but yeah, as this time as OC, I mean, like I would gladly take 34.1 points per game. I would gladly take 416 yards per game. Now, you could argue that like that era of college football has kind of shifted. I mean, when he was there, but I still think like I just think like what Kirk wants to do, he would be able to do that, and I think he'd be able to do it better than what we've had.
Is his name like being associated with Iowa?
So there was talks, and their friendship is like this, according to what I've heard. And right now he is serving as what was it? I had it up here. He is Texas. He's an analyst at Texas, offensive analyst / special assistant to head coach.
Okay.
Texas is pretty good this year.
Oh yeah.
So
the offense is really good.
Yeah, and so like, I don't know. The more I think about it, if that happened, I would actually be not mad about it at all.
I just don't want, like you said, and I don't know anything about John Budemeyer or whatever his name is. I don't want him. He's done clearly not a very good job this year.
Yeah.
I mean, it. That's
Or the last how many years that he's been there?
Yeah, that's doing nothing to like help our
Yep.
situation. So no, I would actually love Paul Chryst if he was actually an option. And like you said, because I agree. I think if Kirk stays, this offense, he wants to keep it, his.
Yeah.
So and rightly so. I mean, he's won a lot of games with this offense. I get it. But I do think Paul Chryst would kind of provide a lot of similarities, but and some differences with what we're already doing. So I would love that.
I think with Kirk and with his style, what makes it unique a little bit is it is different than the rest of the league.
Yeah.
He kind of differentiates with anybody else, which I kind of like that. And so if you can bring in a guy like Paul Chryst who just makes it a little bit more modern, and that's kind of what you'd probably get with him. He's a little bit more of an offensive minded guy. I mean, he was offensive coordinator for 7 years. He was a head coach in that span, some very successful seasons.
That's the big thing. He's had experience and he's actually won. He's proven.
Proven.
That's what I want. Yes.
I still do, regardless of who the offense coordinator is, I really hope Kirk also hires strictly a quarterbacks coach.
Yeah.
Go out and find a good quarterbacks coach. That's been our problem the last few years. Obviously, Brian.
Yeah.
Sorry, you never play that position. Like, you should not be coaching that position. Get a guy that's actually been proven at that position. So if you get like Paul Chryst, great, but then also go out and get like an actual quarterbacks coach. And then I'm really feeling good about things.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I just kind of want to end it on that because I was thinking that today and I was just like, man, like, I really wouldn't mind it.
We're towards the end of the season, and I mean the off season is right around the corner. So yeah, it's a good question, good point to bring up.
I'm sure. Yep, I'm sure it's going to be a main talking point. December, January. I'm hoping whoever they hire that they do it quickly with the transfer portal, with things like that. Because I think if you can get Paul Chryst, I really think like you can use that as like, okay, go look at his resume at Wisconsin as both a head coach and an offense coordinator. You could probably land a few transfers out of that. Just say, 100%. Go look at his resume there.
Talk about linemen. Like what lineman wouldn't want to play for Paul Chryst, I feel like.
Yeah.
I mean,
running backs.
He has a great track record. Yeah, running backs, tight ends. Like, I don't know. Just Wisconsin did a lot of the similar things like you mentioned that Iowa did when
they just did it better.
They just did it a little bit better.
Yeah.
So
he's
the guy that he has the proof that it works.
From his record, when he first started 2015 to like 2016, 2017, those years, 10-3, 11-3, 13-1, like really good.
Years.
Yeah. And then as offensive coordinator, like, and that was when Brett Bielema was obviously head coach, but you're putting up that many points per game. Yeah, you're going to be good. No wonder you won back-to-back Big Ten titles. So I would be all for it. I would honestly love, regardless of who the new offensive coordinator is, I actually wouldn't mind if like Kirk hired that, in, December, because that's when the transfer portal is really in force. It's probably going to be after the year, but like, you already know Brian's done. So like, let's get, I would like to get on it. Right. Because I mean, 100%. I think December is a big month to land transfers.
Like, the early signing period and everything.
Yep.
Like
you have that.
There's a lot of, there's a lot of craziness that goes on in December already. So having that and letting people know that there's some like stability there and like there's a plan at Iowa, like that would be the guy. Like, I think that would help a lot.
Exactly. But well, that will do it for this episode. We got some big, or I should say, some good Hawkeye days ahead with Iowa basketball, Iowa football on Friday, and then obviously next week the Big Ten championship game. We'll be back. Trying to think of the schedule right now. I would like to do like maybe a recording on Sunday to go over the Nebraska game, and then we'll do one on Wednesday again to go, the Big Ten championship game. Yeah. We were talking like a couple weeks ago. Well, hopefully we can do an episode that week. It just depends if we make it. Well, we made it, so I wouldn't mind doing one there. And then probably after that, like we'll probably get to the point where we probably will only do one maybe once a week, if that. Obviously, when we get into the off season, I would like to continue doing them. Yeah. Maybe not as much as we do now, but I know the last couple of years it was like one of those things where it's like we just ended, and I just don't know if that's a really good thing. I think I want to stay consistent.
Yeah, I do too.
So we could, I was just thinking like, when a season really gets over with, which is like the first week of January, like once a week, once maybe every couple weeks.
Yep.
Probably more like that. Maybe two episodes a month. Go over just kind of anything that's been kind of happening. And then you get into like March and you have spring
talk
ball.
A little Iowa basketball.
Yep, talk a little Iowa basketball. Yeah,
how they're doing, women's
for
game
sure
too. So yeah, there's a lot of topics to talk about, and yeah, like you said, just I think continuing would be a good thing, and instead of just it's the summer, a few months before football begins. Hey, we're back.
Yep, we're back just like this. But can't believe the season's already over with, man. It's crazy, man. It's gone so fast. And it seems like it was just yesterday that, we had our first one back on July 26th. And like, oh my God, season's almost here. And then the season gets here and we're doing 2 episodes a week. And it's like, wow, it's over.
I will say this too. If we go, I know we're in the West, but man, to go 10-2 with the amount of injuries and the offense this year, Kirk deserves a lot of credit in that regard.
Yeah,
if we got to get the job done, but even 9-3, not a lot of people could do that under those circumstances.
No, and then with the whole fiasco with the Brian Ferentz situation, just
gambling,
keeping everybody, gambling, keeping just everything just tight and well-oiled machine. That's one thing with Kirk. I will always he runs a well-oiled machine, and he knows how to keep guys motivated. He's just a really good leader. It's just as simple as that. So,
good point.
But well, that will do it for this episode. We will talk to you guys again here in the next week. Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving.
Right.
Eat a lot of turkey.
Go win that Floyd Weidel Bowl.
Oh, I forgot. Yep, it's going to be
big game.
People that don't know, we do a family football 4v4 out on the gridiron.
Big time athletes out there, man.
The weather doesn't look too great. It's supposed to be like a high of like 39 and very windy, but I guess it is what it is. There's been some years where it's been really bad. So my only thing that sucks is
we're through those conditions.
Yep, I'm gonna miss the Iowa basketball game on Thursday, so you have to keep me updated, and I'll probably just rewatch it later that night.
Yeah.
Someone was like, "Well, why don't you just everybody just don't know what the final score was?" I don't know. I don't like that. It's really hard for me to do that because it's like the game's over with.
Don't even check your phone then.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna see it on Twitter or whatever.
You'll see on Twitter. Yeah.
It's a big game though. Oklahoma is a good team. They're 4-0. Yeah. They're Ken Palm in the 30s, and we're right now I think at 38 or something. So both equally matched teams really going up against each other.
Anybody, but that's the one thing they've played nobody.
Nobody.
But
yeah.
They're still. They'll still be a decent team.
I hope we can go 1-1. Obviously, I hope we go 2-0. But if we can just at least go 1-1 in this tournament, I would be happy. I not want to go 0-2. I want to see at least one win down there. But if we can go 2-0, that's huge. But well, that will do it for this episode. We'll see you guys here in the next week. Have a good rest of your week. Happy Thanksgiving, and go Hawks.